All right. Welcome, everyone. We are glad to have you here with us today. We have a fun little chat prompt for you as we get started. You're going to want to change your drop down to everyone and then tell us what would you name a supervillain who puts obstacles in your way? We're going to be talking about obstacles and removing obstacles in course design. So we wanted to start with something sort of fun, a little creative, get those juices flowing in your brain. What would you name a supervillain who puts obstacles in your way? We're looking for your institution, where you're coming from, and then a fun answer to this supervillain prompt. I didn't even think of any examples when I was doing this. I should have come up with some examples.
Yeah, now I'm gonna give it thought.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, impediment. Oh, that's a good one, Kelly.
Some people are turning quickly to their AI to be like,
Oh,
give,
yeah,
give
yeah.
me an
I would
answer for a supervillain who would do this. Yeah, that's great.
Roadblock. Ooh, brick wall. There's some good ones. Misdirection.
Wow.
A huge gator. Yes, that in Gainesville that happens often.
Obstacles instead of obstacles. Pronounced
Uh,
like Hercules. That's so funny.
that is a good one. Make sure to change your drop down to everyone so that we can all see your comments. It defaults just to hosts and panelists. So we want to make sure that we can all see your fun ideas as you join. Please tell us in the prompt, what would you name a supervillain who puts obstacles in your way? Tell us where you're coming from, and we're going to get started in just a second. Mr. Zio. Blocker. These are great. We love our community because you're always full of fun, creative ideas and you're willing to play with us. We appreciate that. All right. Please keep throwing your ideas in the chat. We're going to go ahead and get started. Just some logistics. We are joined by our amazing Claire today, who is our customer support specialist. Claire will be in our Q&A panel. So if you have questions about the tools or features that we're showing as we're going through this webinar today, please put them in the Q&A. We lose things in chat because chat goes by real fast. And so we don't want to lose them. Put them in the Q&A and we will make sure to follow up with you. And then we are recording this. Do not worry if you have to leave early or if you have some teammates who you think would really appreciate this. We will send out the recording to you in an email in the next day or two. And again, make sure to change your chat dropdown to everyone because it defaults to hosts and panelists. So I see a lot of chat still coming in for hosts and panelists, but we want you to send that to everyone. And with that, we will go ahead and get started. So today's webinar is part of our Design Matters Live series. We'll be talking about the roadblocks hidden in your course designs that might be impeding the success of your learners. Along the way, we're going to share the research that supports the strategies we suggest to clear out those roadblocks and create a path to success. So as you've set your chat drop down to everyone, we know the recording is coming. You're going to use the Q&A if you've got any questions. We don't have hand raising set, but we do have reactions. So if you want to use those emoji reactions, we always love that. It's fun when little hearts and things show up on the screen. Let me go ahead and introduce our presenters today. Yay! Stephanie is our product and marketing manager and the primary researcher behind our Design Matters blog. Amanda is one of our full-time customer success managers and helps ensure you get the most out of your products. Fun fact, both of them were previously customers of City Labs before joining our team. I'm Kristen. I'm the Marketing Engagement Director and resident City Lab Colorful Rainbow, here to bring more color to your day. This is just a small fraction of our team who want to help you solve the challenges that you're facing in design and accessibility. If more of our team is in chat, please say hi, team. We love to communicate with you and help you. I'm going to drop a link in the chat for some of these things that I'm talking about, so you can sign up for the Design Matters Live and also sign up for a demo. If this is your first time joining us, let me tell you a little bit about City Labs. City Labs was founded out of a partnership with Utah State, where Kenneth Larson, our co-founder, was working as an instructional designer. He was given permission to hack Canvas and started making what was the first iteration of Design Plus, now our flagship design product. Over the years, our team has grown with educators, instructional designers, former customers. Everyone here is really drawn to the idea of improving the learning experience. We have 6 products for Canvas, from accessibility to course lifecycle management. All of these tools have been developed in partnerships with customers or with universities. We had a quote come in from a customer the other day saying, like, for instructional designers by instructional designers, and that's very, very true. We love this stuff. We care about it. We nerd about it, even when we're not working. Today we're going to be showing off Design Plus, our must-have design suite of 3 tools that are going to make creating content for Canvas accessible, affordable, and fun. You'll also see UDO Advantage, our course accessibility assistant that helps you fix accessibility issues and trains you along the way. If you're curious about any of those products, I'm going to drop those links for a demo so you can find the right tools for your needs. As I mentioned, this is part of our Design Matters Live series. It got started as a response to feedback from you, a growing need around research connected to design. We wanted to help you face those challenges by pulling together these topics, and each month we have a topic selected that we send in a digest, and then we share how design impacts that particular topic. We offer practical tips as well as ways to improve your own course design using the tools from City Labs. I'll drop the links in chat. This will come in a second once I stop talking and I don't have to use my hands to talk. We send these digests out every month, and you can also find them on our website. These webinars take that blog content and bring it to life with engaging discussion, examples, live demos, and silliness from us all. You'll leave with actionable tips and the research to back up these ideas. So we're going to start today with a poll. All right, I am going to launch this poll and drop some things in the chat while y'all get started.
Yeah, so this poll is asking which obstacles are impacting your learners most. You can select multiple, right? Because let's face it, I imagine it's not just constrained to a single obstacle, but let us know. This is helpful for us as we continue our conversation today.
Right, we got about 40% so far have answered.
Okay.
See it coming in. Oh, this is going to be really useful. We are interested in this for a lot of reasons because it helps guide us in this discussion, but also we're thinking about future topics. How can we consider these, pieces of input that you're giving us to help craft more tailored content for you? So it's very helpful in many ways. We got about 66, slowing down, 68%.
The popcorn popping effect, right?
Yeah. Jennifer taught me that. All right. Looks like we are slowing down, so I'm going to get your answers in quick. One more time. All right, here we go. So the results are in, and you can see the highest one was around cognitive load. The next highest is around uncertain details, tasks, and processes, trouble locating resources, and then we see some similar ones around content only being available in a certain format, internet bandwidth, and then disabilities, which is a very broad one. We know that. So let's go ahead and dive in with our goals for today.
Absolutely. Yeah. And seeing that so many of you were talking about cognitive load, good news. We are going to cover that as a particular barrier today. So we're going to directly address that, but we like seeing some of these other elements because we are going to highlight a lot of these pieces as we go through today. And just another plug for our past Design Matters Digest and webinars actually have targeted a lot of those barriers kind of specifically as their own topics. So dig through those to find more. But what are we doing today? What is clear from the poll results, and I'd imagine simply from your attendance today, that there are real obstacles that can stand in the way of learning in our Canvas courses. And I assume you'd like to figure out some ways you can reduce or remove those barriers. So if you read our most recent Digest edition, you got a sense for some of the research-backed tips for tackling common course obstacles with thoughtful design and the right tools to help. So today we'll be diving deeper into that research and demoing some of those solutions live.
So, when thinking about obstacles, one of the first things that came to my mind was this TV show that came out of Japan called Most Extreme Elimination Challenge, or like our American version of Ninja Warrior, where people are going through obstacles and it's fun and there's no risk and it's just silliness and we love, the ridiculousness that ensues. But that's because there is nothing on the line, and that's when obstacles can be fun. They can inspire creativity or ignite new solutions. But
But when you're trying to get somewhere, obstacles become less of a fun adventure and more of just a headache. So this flooded road here, this is Thursday afternoon during hurricane season in Miami. We see this all the time. And what happens is that water starts going in your exhaust pipe, whatever that is, and you don't know enough about cars to know how to deal with that. So now you're freaking out when you're just trying to get home from the office. Just me? Okay then. So obstacles can be frustrating and super disorienting, and they can really take our focus away from what it is that we need to do and where it is that we need to go. And in online learning, like in life, barriers can be discouraging and prevent progress.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know about hurricane season, Amanda, but I do know about traffic in Southern California. Similarly, right, when there's somewhere you're trying to get and the obstacles are in the way, frustration ensues. And so Kristen and Amanda's point is likely an intuitive one for you, right? That obstacles aren't any fun when there's an important objective, as is the case for all Canvas courses, right? And so for learners, obstacles are frustrating at best. And as the research points out, obstacles in a Canvas course are often detrimental to everything from learner motivation and success to belonging and retention. So the good news is, though, that there's a growing body of research that has documented various course design strategies for removing or alleviating common learning obstacles in an online environment. And that's what we're going to explore today. So to break this research down into actionable tips for you, something you can walk away with, we're going to look at three primary strategies today, ways that you can use course design to streamline organization and navigation. Shout out to those in the poll who said trouble locating resources, right? Um, Increasing your learners' access to content, and our most selected response here, reducing the potential for cognitive overload. So let's go ahead and dive right in.
So we want our students to be spending their time learning, not figuring out how to get to the reading or find the resources that they need. And I'll share a personal story that I think illustrates why an enhanced navigation experience really matters. So my dad has no sense of direction, zero. He can't go anywhere if the route is not mapped out for him. And I'm the same way, by the way. I inherited it. And so before smartphones, whenever we had to drive somewhere new, my dad would look up the route on Google Maps on our family desktop computer. He'd write down the directions on a post-it note, and then he'd stick that post-it note on the steering wheel so that he knew where he needed to turn left, where he needed to turn right. And so he'd have to spend a really long time studying that route, optimizing the space in that little post-it note. And that was time that inevitably cut into our outing. And so that same thing happens when course navigation is unclear. When your students don't have a predictable structure, they're wasting time, they're spending their mental energy figuring out where to go instead of focusing on their learning. And so a well-designed course acts like the GPS, right? Not even the post-it note, just the GPS that you've got on your phone that is then going to allow students to easily get to their destination. And Stephanie, I know that there's research on this. So what does it say?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And not surprisingly, the research supports your example and even the explanation that you provided, because navigating by itself is an active process, right? And it's especially consuming during unfamiliar, unorganized, or unexpected tasks. So the first quote you'll see on the slide here emphasizes your point, Amanda, that a well-structured interface allows students to focus more on learning. Amazing. It also notes that intuitive navigation enhances overall student satisfaction with the course, which has its own set of positively correlated outcomes. And what I think is extra cool is that an organized course structure actually improves a learner's cognitive awareness. It's sort of like giving them a learning boost because the course and the content structure becomes a model for how to structure the learning in their long-term memory. So the way that you structure becomes helpful structure for them. Ah, so good. So, and research shows that a low level of findability, so sort of the opposite of this intuitive navigation, as in it's hard to find things in a course, right? Is actually correlated with lower self-efficacy for students. So this one's hard and it's important because unorganized or unintuitive course structure isn't just impacting the student's ability to learn, it's impacting their beliefs about their ability to learn. And that extends beyond a single course, right? And so what are some strategies, don't want to leave it on the depressing note, right? For designing an organized course structure with intuitive navigation. So what we want to focus on is findability and flow. So a few kind of strategies that you could be implementing to increase the findability and flow in your Canvas courses. One would be developing a baseline module pattern. This doesn't mean that every module has to have the exact same cookie cutter pattern that never changes. In fact, if you want to learn more about finding that kind of perfect zone, we have a consistency digest and webinar that we just did. But the pattern really just acts as like a base set of expectations, right? Then from there, another thing that helps with that same base level set of expectations is maintaining consistent naming conventions. So having things be labeled in a consistent manner increases that findability, especially when someone's a learner is trying to find something like through 10 different modules. It's easier to locate those elements based on a naming convention. Another really great way to kind of support then, if you have a great structure, you can then streamline and support the navigation to that structure, which is really helpful. So buttons on a home page might help point learners to really important resources and maybe ones that live outside of the typical module structure, especially really helpful there. Progress reminders for your learners. Maybe they're in the middle of a module and you're reminding them that they have, X more items or activities to complete. And that helps them remember that there is that structure and that they're following that pattern. And so that goes down to that last bullet point too. Another really great way to support the findability and flow in your course is to really directly outline the pattern or structure for your learners. So if you have like a module overview page that reminds them, hey, this is the flow of this module, it gives them that early start of the mental model so that they can employ it as they're working through the module activities.
And those are really amazing tips, Stephanie, because they're actionable, right? It's one thing to understand that we need better navigation. It's another thing to understand how to create that better navigation. So I love that you're specifically referencing things like buttons on a home page and progress reminders. So let's go ahead and see some of these examples now and how we can use Design Plus to streamline organization and navigation. So I'm going to share my screen. There we go. Find the tab that I need to find. There we go. And so the first thing that I want to show you is just some home pages. Home pages are super important because it's the first thing that your students see when they come into your course. And so we can go ahead and add a link grid just to make sure that students have quick access to everything that they might need. But we can also add something dynamic, right? Because that home page is not just the first thing they're seeing when they come into the course for the first time. It's the first thing they're seeing every time they come into the course to work on content. So we have something like a module list that will preview all of the different modules in the course, and you can set one of those as active so that as soon as a student comes into the course, they know I'm supposed to be working on lesson 5 today. And they even have quick links to an overview and everything that they need to complete in that lesson 5. And the best part about this, well, the best part is that it helps create some really good navigation for your students. But the second best part about this is that for you, this is super easy to set up because you're not having to create all these different buttons. You just find the one element in the sidebar module list, you select it, and then the sidebar communicates with Canvas and displays those modules for you. So this is more of a higher ed example, but if you are in K-12, we can also do some pretty cool things with home pages. So we have these large, colorful buttons so that our littles know exactly what they need to do to join the live class or connect with their teacher. We have these tabs in here that are automatically open to the schedule, so they know both their daily school schedule, but also what they're doing in class and what the expectation is going to be for the structure of that class every single day. And then we also have some resources for parents and the newsletter so that everyone in the family knows what's going on at school in a particular month or whatever it may be. So these are
Amanda,
some.
I'm cutting you off for a second, and this is totally unscripted, but I was just wanting to point out to everyone that the way that these buttons are structured, they're also fully accessible and like readable by screen readers, not even in the image. This is using our tools. Um, so sorry, I just wanted to nerd out on that because the buttons are
Stephanie,
actually built in
this
the
is
tool.
all unscripted. What do you mean? This is the first time we are meeting each other, and this is just all off the cuff.
Okay, sorry for the interruption. I just got all jazzed up about that.
No worries. So those are some cool home pages. Let's see a module overview because again, it's also important to direct your students to what it is that they need to do, not just in the course, but in the specific module. So this is one of my favorites, and we can go ahead and toggle full screen to minimize distractions. And so we have this page. This is also super accessible. This is actual text on top of an image, not an image of text. And then here we have divided our module into different sections, and all of these different sections have the links to the content. There are icons that indicate what it is that the student will be interacting with. So a page versus an assignment versus a discussion, and they can just select these to be redirected to the specific bits of content. Here we have gone ahead and we have added accordions. So thinking about how to minimize that cognitive overload, not present a ton of information all at once, but rather use something like an accordion to make sure that our students are only seeing one subsection, and then after they've really understood that, that's when they can come in to the next one. We've made things fun with some flip cards, and then we can even go in and support their learning by having some quick checks. And if they answer a question incorrectly, we can redirect them to where the answer is. So we are supporting them in finding those correct answers. And we have something like a module navigation here so they can easily go to another place in the modules. And then here we've got a progress bar. This is one of the things that Stephanie mentioned. What this is going to do is show students everything that they've already completed, everything that they still have left to complete, and they can even navigate through the module with that progress indicator. So that's all awesome.
Amazing.
But does it have to take 5 years to complete? No, because we have the multi-tool. So the multi-tool is part of the Design Plus suite of tools. And this is what you can use to scaffold your module structure. So the first thing that we can do here is go ahead and start building some templates. So let's say that we want to create a module overview template. We'll create that, and we can create some other ones, like maybe we'll do a discussion as well. And then we just select that to start building out that template. So we'll open this up. Here is our sidebar, and maybe I already have some template items that my institution has made available for me. So I'm just going to find that. I'm going to look for a module overview, and look, this simple overview with progress indicator already has a progress indicator. So I don't even need to add it. It is right here. And it also has some action items so that I am reminded of the various things that I need to do. So I am going to go ahead and save that template. And once I have this created back in the multi-tool, I'm going to create some modules. Now, it would take me a very long time to create one perfect module and then duplicate and duplicate and duplicate and duplicate like 16 times, and then go in and retitle everything. So with a multi-tool, I can say, I want my modules to be called units. I want to have 5 of those. I want to start with a page that is titled Overview, that is using that template module overview page that we created. I want a header. I want it to be called activities. And then I want a discussion. Let's pretend that we made that discussion template. So we'll do that. It'll be worth 5 points, display grade as points. And then maybe there's also a classic quiz. And so after I create that basic structure, I can go in and generate my module list. And this is already going to apply those naming conventions. So everything is unit and then whatever the number is. But let's say that not all my modules are going to look exactly the same. That's totally fine. Maybe Unit 3 doesn't have a quiz. I can remove that. Maybe Unit 4 has 2 quizzes because I'm a terrible person. Don't ever give multiple quizzes. So we've got that. And after we do that, we just add all of our modules into the course. And then the multi-tool is going to create all of those individual items. It's going to populate them all into our course. So I'm just going to give that a second to work. And then you're going to see that you'll have all of your modules with all of your templates applied. They will already have that progress indicator that we've added. So you're saving yourself a lot of time. You're creating this very consistent structure with clear naming conventions that your students are then going to have an easy time navigating through. So when we go to our modules and we go to Unit 2 and we open up that overview, because we had applied that template, we have those that progress indicator that shows us what students are going to find in this module. They have the unit number and everything is just here ready for them. We love the multi-tool. I know Stephanie's a huge fan of the multi-tool. This is one of
Big
your
fan.
favorites.
Yeah, I'm glad you talked about it this time because honestly, I feel like I'm always trying to talk about the multi-tool and maybe it's a little too much. So I'd love to share. I'm also going to give you the benefit of the doubt that that second quiz in the module was a survey. You were just collecting student feedback. Yeah,
Yes, yes,
yeah,
we were collecting feedback.
yeah. Well, thank you, Amanda, because yes, one of the things that I was going to bring up is like, okay, great. We love to help learners with structure, but like building out that structure, maintaining appropriate naming conventions can be pretty tedious. I love that even inside the multi-tool, you can use it to restructure existing modules so quickly. You can delete entire content. See, again, here I'm talking about the multi-tool, but you can delete the content. It's not just like when you're on the modules index and you have to, you remove it, but then it just hangs out in your course forever, forgotten about and collecting dust. So we love the multi-tool. If you haven't explored it, please do. But I want to think about this. Design Plus makes doing the important work of streamlining course organization and navigation very easy, right? And it's great because increasing learners' ability to find course content is awesome. But what good is all of that work if once learners find the content, they can't access all of it in the necessary ways for their learning? Certainly, when we think of accessibility, we can think in terms of accommodations or Title II legislation or working to support learners using assistive technologies. Lots of ideas might kind of pop up in your head when you think about the idea of access or accessibility. But when we're talking about obstacles for learners to access content, we're actually talking about a really wide range of potential obstacles that include all of those things and more. I'll share, I started my teaching career at a continuation high school, and many of my students at that time had limited access to technology at home, or, they didn't always have the software that matched whatever the school district had adopted. And that really reduced portability of their learning and their ability to work outside the classroom. So my colleagues and I were working to design our courses in a way that acknowledged and removed obstacles for them to learn and demonstrate their learning, right? At the time, that was like leveraging the newfangled cloud technology and structuring course time to include tech access at the school site. And many, if not all of us, I think, really recognized some of these kinds of obstacles in 2020 when so much learning transitioned online in a hurry.
At the same time, though, I think there was this false sense of security back in 2020, this belief that the generation that was taking courses at that time had grown up with technology and was going to be able to shift to fully online learning easily. But that wasn't always the case. I taught in 2020 and I had students who didn't have their own laptops and had to share a desktop with their sibling. I had other students who, when they were on campus, they could access fast, reliable Wi-Fi. But that wasn't the case in their childhood home. And so there were all of these technical challenges sort of on top of the world falling apart, that just many of us didn't quite predict or were necessarily ready for. And I think another thing that happens and continues to happen now, beyond 2020, is that when we picture a college student, we tend to imagine this 18 to 22-year-old who may be working a part-time, but school is really their main priority, and they're studying at the campus library. But the demographics of our learners are changing, and we have a lot of students who are working full time, who are coming back to college after having kids, who may be starting college later in life. And those students are accessing their course materials from all kinds of different environments, from all kinds of different sized devices, from different headspaces, even. And so we have to think about what the different barriers to their learning are and how we can remove them. So, Stephanie, how can we remove them?
Good question. So yeah, learners accessing our Canvas courses certainly are varied, and so are their needs, right? And maybe it feels overwhelming to try and support access for every imaginable scenario. I think that sounds that way for sure. But the relieving concept is that most course accessibility considerations actually benefit all learners and remove or alleviate obstacles beyond the intended audience. So one fix generally helps a lot of learners in a lot of situations. My recent favorite example, Amanda, you shared with me, thank you. And it makes perfect sense. For screen reader users, we add alternative text to images, right, to provide this text description for the instructional image. But that alt text is also what shows when a sighted learner accesses the content without enough internet bandwidth to load the content. And I had never really processed that before. It's such a good example of why that work is helpful for removing barriers for a lot of different learners. And there's really a large body of research on the benefits of universal design for learning, all pointing to this reality. So for online environments specifically, there are both obstacles that are removed because of the flexibility and breadth available by having course resources online. But there are additional obstacles as well, such as internet connectivity, right? And so what are some strategies to remove common access obstacles? So a few that we can share. One, thinking specifically about kind of accessibility, we can check accessibility every time you edit. It's just a really, really good habit to get into. If you need like a cute catchphrase, scan before save. You know, we love a little alliteration here. There's a lot of English majors in this webinar. And so it's a great habit to get into because if you can just before you hit that save button, just check for, you know, any accessibility issues. You're removing obstacles little bit by bit in a really manageable way for your workflow. But also really recommend checking course-wide accessibility throughout a term.
Um, Before you move on real quick, there's another piece of data that I just came across this week that I think was really relevant, which is from the Institute of Education Sciences. I'll share the link about the use of supports among students with disabilities and special needs in college. And the report indicates that 65% of students do not report their disability needs. And so this idea of accessibility for all has even more weight because many students who actually need these things aren't telling their schools that they need them. So this data point was really powerful to me, and I think it really helps us think more about the broader scope of this.
Yeah, absolutely. And while we were planning this session, Kristen actually pushed my thinking here and asked about why would I check course-wide accessibility throughout a term, right?
I'm on the wrong slide. Sorry, I'm just distracted by the research.
That's okay.
Yes. If you are doing it, you know, through at the beginning and you're doing it when you're making stuff, why do you have to do it during the term? I think a lot of instructors sort of have this like press go and then things, you know, your course just runs kind of idea. So yeah, that was the question.
I mean, big shout out to anyone who did a course-wide accessibility check before launching their course, right? We love that. And we want to say like thumbs up, keep doing that, great job. But it is a good question. And if you're checking constantly as you're saving and making edits, why would you need to do it again? And you know, depending on the course and the learner needs, educators may be updating their course content, maybe on the fly to be responsive. They may be adding resources along the way to the course, again, in kind of a responsive manner to what's happening throughout the course. They may be relinking or embedding if there's some kind of file issue noted for the learner, right? Sometimes they're like, that's a broken link, so you replace it, but did you check that file? And sometimes these actions are, you know, just done quickly. I think announcements are a really good example because often these are responsive to course activity and learning that may not have been like drafted or planned at the beginning of the course. And especially when there's files included, you may have missed out on some kind of course-wide accessibility scan at the beginning of a term. So if you did the major lift, this at the beginning of the term, I do want to say that these kind of course-wide scans are usually super fast because you're just noticing if anything else pops up. You're not doing that huge lift again. So thank you for pushing my thinking on that. So another way that we can work for accessibility for all our learners or access to the content for everyone is to be able to provide alternate formats to the content and files. This can be incredibly helpful for learners who need it because they can't access the original format of the file, but it's also just, again, helpful. I can't tell you the number of times I wish I could have had an MP3 during grad school to be able to like digest content while looking at like a tree outside. Might have like helped, me get in a good mental state. Another way to support access to the content for all of your learners is to build vocabulary support. So we can do that with icons, images, definitions, right? There's a lot of ways that we can do vocabulary support, but that helps a lot of our learners access content, whether that be they're learning in like a non-native language or they're just emerging readers, right? If we've got our littles who are like learning to read and navigate an online system. Another one would be considering your due dates and availability windows, because if you're hoping to afford access to a variety of learners with a variety of schedules, just remembering like not having something open and close in your Canvas course on the same day can be really helpful for your learners to plan out, to manage their schedule, and even to manage maybe their cognitive load. So if they have that little bit of availability, that allows them to show up with their best and show you their best.
Stephanie, there are things that you just said that if I'm an instructor, I can remember to do no problem, right? I can expand my availability dates. I can provide alternate formats. I can add some fun icons. That's easy enough to do. But that check the accessibility of my content thing, that's hard because how am I even supposed to know all of the accessibility concerns that could be lurking in my course?
Yeah, totally. So with our course accessibility assistant, you do it, you can address accessibility like it's a breeze. And so providing alternative formats is actually simplified too. And even empowering your learners to meet their unique needs. And I love this one based on that kind of pop-up evidence that Kristen provided. It's like, you can allow your learners to meet their needs that they might not have expressed was a need to your larger institution. So that's also a piece of You Do It. So let's pop in and learn a little bit more. So if you have You Do It Advantage, our course accessibility assistant, let me drop down my navigation here, but you would be able to find it just inside your course navigation, which is awesome. It lives right with your course there. You're going to be brought to the scorecard home, which is our new release. We have this amazing scorecard that kind of gives you really at a glance sense of the accessibility of your course. And then it takes elements and breaks them down for you to help you really efficiently address accessibility in your course. So issues are broken down into high impact, medium impact, and low impact, and you can kind of quickly see, where some work is needed. If I want to drill down into this high impact area, I can see the issue types grouped together and their corresponding score, as well as the number of issues that exist in my course. And this really helps me get a sense for like, how do I get started with all of this stuff? Because as you pointed out, Amanda, this can feel kind of overwhelming, it feels daunting. So the home is built to help you figure out what's a good way for you to get started. And so if I'm looking at this, I might say, okay, this high impact area, all these issues in here have a lot of weight, and that's because they have a lot of impact on my learners' ability to access content. And so they're in this high weighted category. And I can see the score, like it might be really super easy to fix my page headings because I'm already at a 99% and there's only 2 issues. So I could clear those out really fast if we, want to just get some wind under our wings there. I can see though with images, it's only at 71%. I have 13 issues and I would really like to fix all of those, image issues. And so I could select images right here, and You Do It is going to give me all of the images that I would want to work on. So these are ways to get started working in You Do It as well. We also have these additional ways to get started, again, to help you meet the needs of your learners. You can do it by particular issue type. You could do easiest to fix. If you're like, just show me all the stuff that's super easy and you do it, it can only make a big accessibility impact. Great. You could go after just the high impact issues. You can do by impact type. So if there's a particular issue that you are made aware of for a learner in your course, you can drill down into the issues that would affect them specifically. And you can also do by content type. So say, for example, I wanted to get all my pages up to speed at the beginning of a course because my whole first module is pages. We could do that. So whether you select over here or over here for a way to get started that's going to work best for you to make a big impact on your accessibility, when you get started, you're brought to our You Fix It area where you can see everything that is in the category or the filters that you selected. You can apply additional filters. So again, there's a lot of control in your hands for how to go after this thing that can feel kind of overwhelming. So to simplify it, it's all here and organized. Say I wanted to get started reviewing some of these issues and fixing them right away. I'll give you an example of that. I'll just select review on this first item. And here, not only am I given the ability to fix this, but I'm also given some education and some helpful tips that allow me to figure out why this is a problem in my course, this issue that, alternative text should not be the image file name. It also can explain to me what I can do to fix it. And then it's very easy to fix here. So maybe at the end of every module, I have a little celebration image, these little cute little pineapples wearing party hats because we're like, woo, you did it. You're end of the module. Great job. I want to make sure that this image has alternative text so that my screen reader users will be able to understand that it's a big celebration. It's kind of cute that it's pineapples wearing hats. I might want to tell them that, even if it's not instructional. If it's just kind of the visual fluff, which this one really is, I could also just say, let's mark this as decorative because it's not instructional, right? I don't necessarily need to have alt text for this, which is really, really fun. And so when I've done that, I can go ahead and save that. And ta-da, I'll get a bunch of green check marks. I'm so excited, yay. For some reason, it didn't flag it on the last one, but here's the pineapple image again. Notice that when the issue is identical, I think that I had swapped out that image at some point. When the issue is identical in You Do It, we also help you move very quickly by applying that solution to all identical issues in the course. So right now, all of my module pages that have that image are fixed because it's the same issue. And so we can go through and do this for a variety of issues in You Do It. I'm going to close this down while it's processing. Another amazing thing that you can do is checking out your course files. So we were looking over here in the You Fix It area at our course content. If we want to review our course files, which is a key component for accessibility in your course, we can do that with You Do It as well. And You Do It makes it really easy for you to work to increase the accessibility of these files in your course. So if I were to review any of these, you can see that I'm told the issue associated with that file, and then I have a bunch of alternate formats that I can request. So I can request to, have this become an auto-tagged PDF if I wanted to. I can also request, this is our favorite, a Canvas page. Because You Do It Advantage works specifically with Canvas, we have a way to convert these files into a Canvas page for you automatically, which really increases the accessibility of these files, particularly one that's a scanned file. This is just a text. And so if I request this, I'll also be able to, when it finishes processing, replace the file with a page. And it's going to fix all the links throughout the entire course in one swoop anytime I was linking to that resource. So, so cool. And just so you can see kind of a quick example of what that looks like, say you've got this big, document here that's got all this text. It does have a couple images. If we converted that to the Canvas page, here's an example. You do want to go in and check it, right? We're emphasizing accessibility here. Notice some of this has been italicized and it doesn't need to be. Quick fix. I can even say these images all got stacked on top of each other. I could use Design Plus to add those images to columns and make them super accessible. Amazing, right? But you can just see how quickly this speeds up the process, and it creates a much longer term solution for your files because you're not having to go in and tag all of those every time Adobe updates its software, that kind of thing. All right. Jump back.
Stephanie, I am super duper impressed because You Do It makes it super easy to find all of the content in that course that needs to be remediated. It teaches me about accessibility and universal design principles. It gives me multiple ways to get started, and it allows me to prioritize the issues that are impacting my students the most. So it's almost as if You Do It is removing obstacles to optimize my own learning.
That's
How
right.
fitting. But let's be totally honest here, right? Remediating content takes time. And it's time that is very well spent, but it's time nonetheless. And so what's ideal is to create content that's accessible from the get-go, to be proactive and to think about accessibility not only after you've created the content, but as you're creating it as well. And so here at City Labs, there's a phrase that we like to say, accessibility by design. So you do it, checks your content, it gives you the knowledge that you need to be proactive, and then Design Plus makes it easy for you to build accessible content from the start because it includes accessible styling features and intuitive accessibility checkers at the page level to help create awesome stuff. Because stuff is not awesome if it's not accessible. So let's take a look at some of our Design Plus accessibility features. So I'm going to share my screen again and I lost my screen. There it is. So just a few quick things with Design Plus. Let's say that we're creating a page completely from scratch. First thing I'm going to do is add a theme. The Canvas title is always going to be heading level 1. This theme is going to come in at heading level 2. And then when I go in and I add a content block, this is coming in at a heading level 3. So I'm not having to think about that logical heading structure. Design Plus is taking care of that for me. Now, let's say that you already have a page that has been designed and you just need to go in while you're editing it and making sure that there are no accessibility concerns. Well, the sidebar has some accessibility checkers. And so you can select the accessibility and usability tab, and let's go in and check our headings. This is going to show us that we're not following a logical structure. So right here, we skipped a level. And we can easily use these arrows to go make that the appropriate heading level. If we have a paragraph that is not quite, or oops, it's this one, that is not quite a heading, so it's just a paragraph, but it's much larger than the text around it, Design Plus asks us, should this be a heading? It kind of feels like it should be. And if it should be, again, you use those arrows, you make it whatever heading it needs to be. If you have images, Design Plus will also let you know that there are some images that are missing alternative text, or maybe the alternative text is a placeholder. I can't tell you the amount of times that I've seen image as the alternative text for an image. That is not very helpful. It will also let you know that, IMG 3907, whatever the file name, is not very helpful alternative text. So you can handle all of that right through the sidebar. And then if you have what I call an instructional designer's worst nightmare, which is that somebody has put images inside a table because they didn't know how to create columns because natively Canvas doesn't quite allow you to create columns. You can come in and just turn that table into actual columns. And then that's it. You didn't have to delete and recreate it. You just pushed a button. Super easy. And then the other thing that I love about this accessibility and usability tab is the external assets tool. So right now in this page, I have this image that I can see, but that it's coming from a different course. So this course is not the course that I currently am in. And if a student were to go into this course, because they don't have access to this one, they wouldn't see that image. But I need them to see that image. And so Design Plus will let me know, and I can just select this button to import this content into my current course and automatically update the link so that the image that is showing is not from the previous course, but rather from the current course that we are working on. And so there's all these different things that you can do in terms of accessibility to support your learners. And when we're thinking about access and making sure that all of our students have access to content, not just because it's in the course that they're supposed to be in, but just in general, we have to account for a bunch of different scenarios, right? Students who may be using assistive devices like screen readers, students with low internet speeds, students for whom English is not their first language, and also just supporting students who may be having trouble with the material. And so here we have used two of my favorite elements that I believe are underutilized, tooltips and dialog boxes. So a tooltip will display some extra information when you go in and you hover over a word or a phrase. And this can be really good for definitions. If you have students who maybe didn't quite understand polygons back in week 6, or, whatever it may be. Personal story. I'm a big reader. And so sometimes I'm reading and there's a word that I don't know. And so I pick up my phone to look up the definition because I want to know what that word is. But when I'm in my phone reading that definition, I get a notification and then I go handle that notification. And then I remember, oh, I didn't play the mini crossword today. So I go and I play the mini crossword. And while I'm on it, I might as well play connections. And then I don't come back to the book. And so you don't want students to be in your course, find a word that they don't know, and then go Google it and end up playing the Wordle. You want them to stay in the course. So just give them the definition right here using a little tooltip. We also have the dialog box if you want to share even more information like images or your accordions or videos, whatever they may be. And then another thing that this page has that I really love is icons. If you use icons consistently, your students learn what to expect when they come across that icon. So every time I see this little list in my course, I know that I'm going to be dealing with instructions. Every time I see this play button, I know that I'm dealing with videos. And so it's going to be really easy for me to reference all of these different pages, maybe to go back to something to find what I need, because I can just scan that page and look for the icon for that section and just, get the information that I'm looking for.
Amazing. And I just want to give a quick shout out. That theme is called Luminous Polygon, and it's in our library. And it was submitted by Chris Hofer, one of our customers, and give him a little shout out. Thank you. But when I was creating this origami page, I was like, what's better than like a math themed theme with the mathematical origami? So having a little fun. We do have amazing templates from our customers in the Design Plus library if you've never checked it out. Okay. Jumping in. Now we're heading in, let me get my screen sharing. We're heading into our final topic and we are up against time because we're having way too much fun and way too pumped up about all of these features. So we're gonna go through this. I know a lot of you are already excited to hear this information because this was the big topic. So thank you, Amanda, for showing us how Design Plus really helps create access for our learners to the content. And you do it, of course, ensures course-wide accessibility. And so this is like a really dynamic power pair that we have from City Labs. But one thing that comes to mind when thinking about designing content and adding in some of these like kind of support elements that you featured is the concern that it can get a bit overwhelming for the learner. So hopefully the streamlined organization and navigation help learners manage their cognitive load, but cognitive overload in content design is a real obstacle. And Amanda, do you mind if I just go straight to the research for time? Great.
Of course. I was not scheduled to make a comment.
So this quote on this slide makes it clear that it's actually pretty easy to overburden our working memory, and that impedes learning. And this is one of those reminders that sometimes less is more, right? We want to provide a ton of support, maybe like definitions and things like that, but with good design, what we can do is achieve the less is more experience without ditching all of those resources. And so research on designing for managing cognitive load really emphasizes the importance of using visual structures. So not only do visual structures reduce the load, as I mentioned earlier, they also mirror conceptual structures that support long-term learning retention. And so support non-essential or redundant content, maybe like 3 different images that convey the same idea. All of these can also direct cognitive capacity away from learning or completing a task if it competes with the essential content or instructions. So there's some separation needed. And so we'll talk about, what are some ways that we can do that. One way that we can avoid overload is by segmenting content with consistent headings. So color and heading borders can really help with identifying those content headings. You saw in that luminous polygons example, right? Those headings were colored and had those large icons next to them. And so that second point is met there, right? Pairing icons with headings, concepts, or activities, create that mental model for learners. When they see that icon, they didn't even have to read that heading. They weren't even using their cognitive resources to process that. The icon itself was telling them, these are the instructions. This is the grading and feedback information. And then, as we've been showing all throughout this webinar, a bunch of visual structures like columns, accordions, tabs, or little popovers can structure or separate the content. So we can say, you know, this is the essential, this is the most important, and then here are all of these resources to help you. So to just kind of quick overview on what it is we're talking about for reducing cognitive overload, let me hop into, this was not the example. You're going to get a quick preview of the after before the before, because, you know, we're moving quickly here. But this is an example that I encountered when working with a faculty when I was doing instructional design. This faculty member had amazing resources to support their learners with their discussion. But by the time they went through all the resources, they have the discussion, information, the prompt, and then they had help for the rubric to support the learners finding the rubric in discussions, because that's not actually very intuitive. And then they had a bunch of Canvas help tutorials in case the learner was new to participating in discussions. Then they had language support with sentence starters, so amazing. And then they had all these videos that were, you know, supposed to support the learners with writing tips. It was all amazing stuff. But when you're trying to figure out what it is you're supposed to do, and you've got all of this competing for your attention on a single screen, it can be a lot. So our after really highlights some of the ways in which you can use the features in Design Plus to specifically design for managing cognitive load. And so here, we've got the icon for the instructions, but the instructions listed short and sweet. We have our content shortcut button. This is an automatic button that you can apply that will allow the learners to access the rubric right here instead of having to learn about how to go find the rubric. Amazing. We've got our background tool that draws in the big attention to what is the prompt for this particular discussion. And then we've got all these resources nested into tabs. And I did see earlier a few people say, some instructors are hesitant about using tabs or accordions. And I say the design matters for how you use those. For something like supplemental resources, I like tabs because the learners don't necessarily need to engage with them. And yet there's a little visual attention on, seriously, there's resources here if you need them. But maybe by week 3, I don't need this to take up visual real estate for my learners. If they need them, they can get to them. And maybe I put all of this inside an accordion. But certainly there's a concept behind the design and why you choose to use certain things like tabs and accordions. All right. And as Amanda kind of already showed us, we have tool tips that, you know, can put the information, we have popovers, put the information out of sight temporarily for the learners if they don't need to engage with it. We have columns to support like compare and contrast, right? So think about the visual structures and think about how you can support your learners, and then think about how easy Design Plus makes all of that. Right. So I know we covered a lot, and we have some questions, but this is our hope, is that today we've helped you figure out some ways to remove common learning obstacles by streamlining your organization and navigation, by increasing access to your content for a variety of learners, and by reducing cognitive overload, ultimately, to optimize learning in your Canvas courses. And we also hope that our tools will help you do that a little easier and with a little more fun.
Love that. We do have a great number of questions, and I will preface this that if we don't answer your question now, we will try to address it in the email. I appreciate everyone using the Q&A. Thank you. All right, so let's see where to start. Can you talk about the accessibility of quick checks and flip cards?
The quick answer is they are built.
They are accessible.
They are accessible. Yeah, we take like great care in ensuring that. And if you ever find something that's off and not working, submit it to support right away, because we want to know that and we want to fix it immediately. But it was, I think, kind of a long process, and maybe Claire knows a bit more about developing like flip cards and ensuring that they were in fact accessible and, you know, could be navigated by keyboard shortcuts or keyboard use, or, you know, again, I'm not the developer, but yes.
And I'll also add that these things are also responsive. So everything in Design Plus is made responsive design. There was a question that came in about mobile devices, that most students are using their mobile devices. So that is all taken care of. You do not have to fret. There was a question about the module builder. Is there a way to import the pages and modules that I have been creating over the years, or do I have to start from scratch?
You do not have to start from scratch.
Great, quick answer.
We've got 3 minutes.
Yeah. I'll address some of these. Can we show how to add the rubric button in the discussion?
Yeah, let's.
I saw the button on discussion that said show rubric. How do you create that link to the rubric? Okay.
Yes. So it's actually just our content shortcut. So if I were to edit this discussion, so you need to be in a discussion to start. So if like your discussion template is actually designed in a page, you'd want to bring it into a discussion. And then we have what are called our content shortcuts. Let me just like drop a little paragraph here. You can use our search bar in our new toolbar, which is so cool. Let me type more. There we go, content shortcut. And we have a couple different content shortcuts. When you add one, we're asking which one would you like to use? The message teacher one, which is also so cool. It just drops a little link so that learners can select that, and automatically the Canvas inbox pops up with the instructor's name pre-populated. So that's one. We also have the show discussion rubric. So I just clicked that, ta-da, and that's all taken care of for you. You just save and that button works.
Beautiful. We had a question, which I think we can show the quick checks, but is there a way to create a survey question that learners are required to answer before they can click next and move on to the next page? I want it to be a mandatory survey question without learners feeling like it's a mandatory survey. So I think this is quick checks with some fun styling.
Totally. Yeah, quick checks. You won't see their survey responses, so I do want to say that. But if it's really just an opportunity for learners to check their learning, to monitor their progress, right, which is a beautiful thing to do, low stakes, kind of takes the pressure off and allows students to reflectively engage. Quick checks can do that for you. You simply just, again, search for a quick check and add one in. You get to choose the questions and fill out the feedback that you want. You get to mark which answers are correct. In a survey, all of them are likely correct. So you would just make sure you check all the check boxes, because any answer is a good answer if it is a survey, I would imagine. And then you can also choose to hide the next button. So if you want them to engage with the question, that's one of the available pieces that you can do.
Yes, and shout out if you happen to be coming to OLC Innovate, we'll be showing a couple different quick check options as exit tickets from our customers who are going to be sharing, which is April 1st at 9 a.m. Eastern if you're coming to OLC. We are at time. I am going to send you a ton of links and resources in your email, so keep an eye out for that. We appreciate so much you coming and joining us today and asking questions and engaging with us. We appreciate it so much. And we hope you have a beautiful day and with very few obstacles.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.